Please give a warm welcome to Out of the Woods author Katina Makris.
I'm good. Hey, everyone. Great to be here. Greg Kirk is really wonderful to have invited me to come down to Wilmington, and it's wonderful to be here at this beautiful theater. I'm really impressed with it. So, Ticked Off Music Festival. Let's hope that this is a beginning of a great thing that's going to happen for many years, and we're going to raise a lot of money for Lyme disease. This is the epidemic of our century that has gone neglected and misunderstood for too many decades. HIV bounced into our lives at the same time that Lyme did back in the late 70s, early 80s, and all the money and research went to that illness, and they've learned an awful lot about HIV, and people live quality lives now with it. And Lyme, sadly, was thought to be just a short-term infectious illness and quickly treated with 2 weeks of antibiotics, and that should be the end of the story. But we've learned the hard way by hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people like myself, that this illness is very treacherous and it moves into different forms. It moves from your bloodstream to your connective tissue and joints, and into organs and glands and into the nervous system, and it looks a lot like syphilis, it looks a lot like malaria, and doctors sadly do not have the information to even properly diagnose it. They're not trained in medical school anything other than the acute form. So I'm a survivor. I will share my story with you in a second, but I'd like to also give you an inspirational message of hope. That's why Greg asked me to come down and speak to you. That no matter how battered and broken you feel, you can reclaim your life from Lyme disease. You can heal, you can thrive, you can shine. I did it. It took me 10 years. Healing is a journey. Sometimes it's an arduous one. It's a long one, but you can succeed. Chronic Lyme disease knocks us to the floor. It strips us of all that we know and value and care for. Many of us have suffered decimating losses from Lyme disease, especially those of us who were not diagnosed, were misdiagnosed, or not treated fully in the early weeks of an acute infection. I know many of you here know about suffering. You know about fear, you know about despair and loneliness. You know about betrayal and confusion. You know what it is like to hold onto your soul in the dark of the night when you feel you are dying and cannot endure another day of pain, another day of lack of medical knowledge, and you feel your money and marriage and friendships slipping away from you. It's horrifying to feel so helpless, to be so dependent, and also not to know what to do. But I tell you, you are not alone. Look at us here tonight. We are here because we all share something in common. We share the story of mismanaged Lyme disease. And we are here because we care. We care about our loved ones. We care about our neighbors. We care about ourselves. And we even care about complete strangers because we want to stop this aggressive bacterial infection. We want to stop the rampant damage Lyme disease creates, and we want to stop the lack of education and ignorance around this. We want to wake up the world. We want Lyme disease prevention taught in community centers and schools. We want our medical world trained in diagnosis and proper acute and long-term treatments. We want insurance support. We want political action. We want annual Lyme screenings nationwide. We want a vaccine. We want a healthier future. We want our families to be safe, and we want this epidemic to be arrested. I have been speaking extensively, sometimes 2 and 3 times per week on behalf of Lyme disease awareness with my book, Out of the Woods. For the past 16 months, nonstop, throughout the country, East Coast, West Coast, Florida, the South, New England, the Mid-Atlantic. I've been in churches, town halls, libraries, bookstores, granges, health centers, even an opera house, and now the beautiful theater here in Wilmington. And I meet the Lyme weary. I meet their caregivers. I meet the concerned and the tragic nature of this illness. The pulse point, I feel, is that of alarm. The American public is waking up to their vulnerability in the midst of a swiftly moving infectious disease epidemic, and they sadly see no real help is available to them. Every 30 years or so, Western society experiences a massive, life-threatening infectious illness. Thousands of lives are lost. Medical science is initially unequipped. Then they rally and find a treatment or a vaccine or a drug. If we look backwards in time, we can see the historical trends. In the 80s, it was AIDS. Prior to that, it was polio. Before then, it was diphtheria. Then tuberculosis, smallpox, malaria. Well, guess what? We are in the midst of the next life-altering infectious illness, and it is called Lyme disease. And the medical world is behind the curve here. We need help, and we need it now. Not in a month or a week, a day. We need more help than can be imagined. Another innocent person must not fall victim to this treacherous organism. I am very blessed. I am well again after losing 10 years of my life to misdiagnosed Lyme disease. I lost it all: my career and income, my marriage and home, my health and well-being. In the summer of 2000, living in rural New Hampshire, very beautiful area, small, quaint village, I came down with a wicked summertime flu. Severe vertigo, chills, muscle aches, and extreme weakness hit me hard. And as I limped into the office, the doctor said to me, "This looks like it could possibly be sinusitis if you've got so much dizziness." Blood tests showed a mild bacterial infection, and he gave me a week of amoxicillin, thinking that I should be fine. Well, 3 weeks later, I was worse, and new symptoms emerged, like heart palpitations, anxiety attacks, profound exhaustion, migraines, and a stiff neck. I had always been the picture of health. I had been a homeopath for almost 20 years and was living an organic lifestyle before it was hip. I was an exercise lover and lived a lot of my life in the outdoors. No one tested me for Lyme disease. They deduced it was walking pneumonia by the end of the summer. I won't belabor the whole story because it's much better if you read it in my book. But 4 months into this nightmare, I was told the only thing they could find was a virus called Epstein-Barr virus, which many of you know as mononucleosis. I was too weak to get out of bed. With 2 little children, our household went into a tailspin, with my husband traveling extensively. Eventually, I had to close my office and give my homeopathic clients over to another homeopath in a neighboring state, and my healthcare column I had to also give up. By year 5, I was bedridden, emotionally and physically fractured, and I'd bounced in and out of many prominent hospitals and doctors' offices in New England with 3 false negative Lyme tests. All they could say is, this is maybe chronic fatigue syndrome. It was a clinical nutritionist, of all people, who properly diagnosed me with the specialty lab IGeneX that many of you know of. At this point, I was in a wheelchair. I had palsies, tremor, dementia. I couldn't make a grocery list or think of a word that I knew like watermelon or telephone. I had endless migraines, and I had foot drop, mimicking MS. And this is where my story takes an interesting turn. I was never so relieved to learn that it was a bacteria that made me so sick, and I was never so furious to learn that no better testing was out there for doctors to pick this illness up. So the nutritionist at this point, I thought he was going to put me on long-term antibiotics because I'd known other people that went on PICC lines. And he said to me, Katina, I would think twice about that. I said, why? I can't function. He said, because it's not proven that the long-term antibiotics are a sure cure. Some people do get successful recoveries. Some people get partial recoveries, and some people actually get worse. They get damaged, and they have consequences from the antibiotics. And he says, in a case like yours, with 5 years of an infection, it's a cat and mouse game of us trying to catch the bacteria when it's active in your bloodstream versus when it's in your tissues and not accessible by antibiotics. So I said, well, what are we going to do? He says, you're a great candidate for the herbal route. And I was pretty shocked. He said, talk it over with your physician, which I did. But he had advised me that there's very strong natural antibiotic herbs that are very effective with Lyme disease. In fact, one of them comes from the Amazon, and it's called cat's claw. Another one the Native Americans used for years, and they called it teasel root. Another one's called Japanese knotweed. So his philosophy was this, and I ended up following it, and it worked. He said to me, there's 3 pieces to this equation. And personally, I've added a 4th. The 3 pieces are, number 1, we have to open up the detox channels in your body. We need to get your liver and spleen and kidneys flushing and working effectively because you've got years of toxic buildup in here. And as we start to kill off the bacteria, if you don't have the detox pathways going, you're going to feel worse and your symptoms are going to escalate and you're going to want to give up. So he started me on homeopathics and milk thistle and a bunch of different herbals to get the kidneys and liver going. And then we started in with the cat's claw. And slowly, slowly, even though I was still on bed rest for another full year, slowly, slowly, I started to notice that the mental fog was clearing. And then the headaches weren't as bad. And then I had a little bit more energy and I could take a walk. And as I said, every 6 months or so, there was a level of improvement that was significant. And the other 3rd piece to his triangle of approach was, besides the detox pathways, killing the bugs, the 3rd, and which I think is essentially crucial, and this is why I think I healed fully, is he said, in order to overcome advanced Lyme disease, we need to rebuild the depletions and damages in your body because this organism has been in here for a long time. It depletes neurotransmitters, it depletes magnesium, your B vitamins, your amino acids, your hormones, and he did specialty metabolic testing to find out exactly where these depletions were, and then we went about several years of rebuilding these depletions with nutritive supplements. And I must say, it was long, it was hard. He had said to me, if you get to 80% well, I think that's really a great recovery, and it'll probably take you about 3 years. And he was right. At 3 years, I was about 80% well, but I wanted to be 100% well. So I didn't want to quit then. And so I decided that I had to find what was next in order for me to make it 100%. And I stumbled upon the Rife technology, which you all have to read about in my book. It's too long to present that information now, but it's energy medicine. It's very interesting. There's different forms of energy medicine available to us. Rife technology is not FDA approved in the States here in our country, so it's all self-help. And the other piece was mending my broken spirit, because after so much loss, I really was emotionally and spiritually fractured. But now you can see I'm recovered and I'm renewed and I'm traveling like a kid in my 30s, and it's a gift I do. And I'm a lot older than that, but I won't tell you how much. And this is a gift. I do not take it for granted. I have a second chance at life, and this time I walk my path with pride and intention. For I have survived a calamity, and I choose to live with purpose. And my purpose is to end the suffering of Lyme disease. I share my story, my holistic healthcare knowledge, and my empathy along the way. The crowds that come out to meet me are of all sizes. A handful in a health food store in Napa, California, to over 200 and bursting at the doors in Massachusetts, North Carolina, Rhode Island. Everywhere I go, all are in need, searching, struggling, and confused. People are on walkers, in wheelchairs, ashen gray, trembling. Some folks are too weak to attend, and a loved one comes out for them to gain some guidance and hope. Your wounds are palpable. The mishandling of the Lyme disease situation is atrocious. The government and medical sector have missed the boat on a modern-day Holocaust. For 35 years, a critical, life-destroying illness has been neglected. It's egregious to witness the damage, the despair, and the lost lives and money because we let a microscopic organism and its co-infections pirate their way into our backyards and houses. Sometimes, as I move among the small towns and into the big cities, I feel like Florence Nightingale, working tirelessly alone in the trenches of suffering, as I minister to the emotional and spiritual needs of the walking wounded and their families. It's not hard to do, to hold your hands, to offer the hugs, but sometimes it is daunting when I hear of a paralyzed child or I meet a woman who is kept alive on a feeding line, her insides too raw and inflamed. So many of you are fragile, and I witness all that you have been stripped of. And still, I bring a message of hope and love, reaching deep into your core, to the marrow of your heart's true calling. For besides tending to your broken body, it's just as critical to tend to the breaking spirit. The emotional and spiritual suffering of this illness is just as catastrophic as the physical. In my opinion, Lyme disease is the epidemic illness of our era that asks us to marry the two hands of healthcare. It asks us to take the scientific diagnostics of pharmaceutical weaponry of traditional allopathic medicine and unite it with the restorative therapeutics of natural medicine. For we all know two hands working together are better than one. Lyme disease is saying, wake up, America. We are behind the times regarding integrative medicine. To recover from this illness, we need centers like the vision of Inanna House, where complementary medicine is integrated into one setting instead of piecing practitioners together from all over town and state. And just as critical as this externally directed physical care is, we must learn how to use our inner healing powers. Lyme disease strips many of us of our career identities, our self-confidence, and our well-being. Fear, insecurity, anger, shock, and sadness can be overwhelming. But we are each blessed with a mind and willpower and a heart of true love and courage. When sick, we need to turn on these precious inner tools. People who thrive in spite of a disaster, whether it's a shipwreck survivor, a war-torn victim, or even a Lyme disease recovery, we all share something in common. Even in the throes of the horror, we see ourselves in a better future. We see ourselves happy and whole and healthy. We don't live in the state of the suffering. We see beyond it to a better place. In order to overcome Lyme and be well, it is vital to use the power of the mind-body healing pathway. You must believe in your vibrant future. You must see yourself there. Belief is a powerful energy. It triggers the brain to create healthy, feel-good neurotransmitters, which in turn jumpstart the immune system. Belief is something we can each instill. You can set a healing intention of your own. You can see yourself in your mind's eye as strong and vital and glowing. I did this when I was wrecked, 5 years trapped at home, trembling on my living room sofa in despair, too weak to walk without help. It was an isolating and cavernous time for me. But receiving a Lyme diagnosis actually gave me hope because I believed I could overcome a bacterial infection. And that belief gave me power, and that power gave me a mission. And that mission made me work hard on my commitment. And I learned how to use the mind-body healing pathway. Every day I visualized myself as vital and radiant and healthy, spreading my arms high and wide like a grand copper beech tree. And here I stand before you, 8 years later, healthy and whole, and that very image I willed myself to be. No more Lyme disease, no more chronic fatigue syndrome, and I am impassioned to help change the future, to change the future of this atrocity. Right now, tonight, in addition, I utter a plea. May this illness be stopped. May the people in power start to listen. Your voices, your tireless efforts, your willingness to leave your homes, and many of you on limited resources find your way here to Wilmington and listen to us live on the internet is an outpouring of passion, of intention, of commitment, and of belief. I applaud every brave spirit here tonight. Your will is mighty, your heart is powerful, and together we are creating a groundswell. Our history, our collective story, our understanding of what Lyme disease looks and feels like moves us to take risk, to speak the truth, and to manifest a change. We will amend the suffering of this illness. I believe we can change the future of Lyme disease. I feel the awareness shifting, the call of hundreds of thousands of people in dire need, pleading for help. I am honored to be a voice of others, to push the envelope, to shift the tides regarding Lyme disease, and we all need to bind together. In my final moments with you now, I would like to say thank you for having me here tonight. Thank you for your contribution to this cause at the Ticked Off Music Festival, and you are wonderful, gifted people. It is my privilege to be in your company. Our united voices, our efforts, our intention, and willpower will change the face of the Lyme epidemic and create a healthier, safer future for us all. Please do not give up hope, and please believe in a better tomorrow. We will turn the tides. Thank you.